Welcome back to In Session, everybody. You know, when you look at the mind of Jodi Arias, the lies of Jodi Arias, how do you discern them? How do you define them? Well, joining us right now, out of Chicago, is forensic and clinical psychologist Dr. Daniela Schreier. Dr. Schreier, thank you so much for joining us today. You know, the first question that I have for you is a very basic one, Dr. Schreier, because Jodi is a liar. I would assume there are different types of liars. Is she a psychological liar? What kind of a liar is she?
Okay, let's say that. I can immediately say, no, she is not a pathological liar. And you know why, Jean? Because there's no such clinical syndrome in the Diagnostic Statistical Manual. That's the book that we use to diagnose. There is no list of symptoms. Okay, outside we can say there is a deliberate liar, a person who lies on purpose, or there is a pathological liar. And people generally mean by that someone who commonly lies all the time. It's a habit and they're compulsive. However, in Jodi Arias' case, her lying has to be seen in the wider sense of her personality, organization, and structure. Just give me 1 minute to explain that. Do you think you would see her on the stand today proclaiming that Travis Alexander was a batterer and that she was sexually and physically abused? Think from the end. No. You said it yourself. She's doing that for self-protection. Actually, the end goal is to avoid punishment. Now, Jean, see me as your psychological analyst or correspondent. I'm looking at the case from the outside. There's one B code or a diagnostic code. I'm not diagnosing in the DSM-40R. That's the manual we diagnose with, and it is called malingering, and her lying goes towards that. Malingering is actually you producing or exaggerating symptoms physically and psychologically in order to avoid punishment, aka in this sense to avoid criminal prosecution or the death sentence.
Okay, so what you're saying right there is what we could hear from the rebuttal psychologist, malingering, and you're saying she is not a pathological liar, she is an on-purpose liar. All right, Dr. Daniela, listen to this testimony, and this is actually an interview from 48 Hours. It was played for the jury today. This is evidence for them, and tell me about these lies. Let's watch.
You say, Travis, I thank you for being such an amazing friend. You are a rock, a light, and an inspiration. I love you dearly. You were still in love with him, weren't you?
I wouldn't say in love, but I loved him very much.
This is not in line with what you've been, with the person that you've been talking to us about, is it?
Yeah, it is. It's very consistent with how he was.
Well, you've been telling us before that he was mean. Do you remember telling us that?
Yes, he was also that.
And you've been telling us that in addition to being mean, he was somebody who physically abused you, right?
Yes, he did.
And that he would raise his voice to you, right?
Yes, he did.
Yet, once you're free of him, and after the fog has lifted, you're thanking him and telling him what an inspiration he is, right?
Yes.
All right, Dr. Daniela, these are actually texts that the prosecution brought up. Now, I have a question. Are there any lies here? Because can't you tell someone that they're wonderful and they're great and you're doing that so they just get puffed up and you know that that is their ego, but then in reality, you feel in a different way about them that?
Well, yes, Jean. See, the first time I came here to talk to you, I established, or I say it from the outside in, she has a quiet, borderline personality organization, and she also has narcissistic, actually, and histrionic traits. Remember, she was in love with him. He probably, in her eyes, was the prince that she was going to marry. And on one hand, right, initially, that was all fine. But then he's changed on her because he did not want, actually, what she wanted. He didn't want to marry her. He didn't want a relationship with her. So on one hand, she has to admit, the Jodi that fell in love, that he's a great guy. But then when her other traits, her narcissism, for example, comes out, or even her fear of, oh my God, I am rejected, then she's coming up and she's telling herself, he's a terrible person, he's using me for sex. She made various actually comments, and this is when that comes out. She thinks on one hand, or she knows that he's a good person, but he's not doing what she wants, and this is when she gets triggered.
Now, let me ask you this, because she is making allegations before this jury that Travis Alexander found an interest in young little boys and pictures of little boys. I want to play for you right now some testimony that is the prosecutor cross-examining her on her journal entry that virtually shows another state of mind on the part of Jodi Arias. Watch this.
It says, Travis, you're beautiful on the inside and out, doesn't it?
Yes.
Isn't that kind of a lie based on what you've told us here in court today?
Objection, argumentative.
Sustained, rephrased.
That's not true based on what you told us here in court, right?
Objection, argumentative.
Overruled.
I believed that he had inner beauty, yes. So it is true.
So you think somebody who masturbates to pictures of little boys is beautiful on the inside, right?
I don't think that aspect of him is beautiful at all. I think it's sickening.
So, Dr. Daniela, this was a journal entry that she believed no one else would read. Does it show that she is actually lying about him enjoying and pleasuring himself to little boys, since she writes about such a beautiful person on the inside?
Well, he is a beautiful person to her on the inside. The only thing that disturbed her was that he rejected her in a way that she could not tolerate. And secondly, look, they tried to build a textbook case for a batterer. When I say textbook, they tried to portray Travis Alexander as the perfect betterer. Every point in the book they tried to hit, all of the criteria. You and I know life is very colorful. It's not textbook that made it unbelievable. And listen, if you look to...
All right, so let me ask you this. Let me ask you this, Dr. Daniela. Could he have liked little boys like she's testified to, but she still feels he is beautiful inside? Could that coincide with each other? Could that be truthful testimony?
No, not in my opinion. Listen, one of the highlights of a betterer in 1/3 of the cases or less, betterers at times take interest in younger children. Sometimes they're also bisexual. And this was the most unrealistic point they actually tried to hit in court. And it was the straw that broke the camel's back. It made it unbelievable.
I want you to listen to this, and not only listen to the journal entry, but I want you to watch the prosecutor. I want to ask you about this cross-examination, the tenor and demeanor of the prosecutor, and how Jodi answers the questions. Watch this, though.
You also write, you always told me that I never stopped believing in you, and I know that you always believed in me, right? That's what it says, right?
Yes.
You always believed in him, right?
Yes, I did.
And even though, according to you, he would get this mean look on his face and he would come charging after you down the hallway, you still believed in him, right?
Yes, that wasn't who he wanted to be.
I'm not asking you if that's what he wanted to be. Did I ask you that, ma'am?
No.
I'm asking you whether or not you still believed in him if he, for example, according to you, threw you down and choked you. You still believed in him, right?
I believed in his potential still, yes.
Now, that is not as animated as it has been, but you saw the interchange between both of them. Dr. Daniela, from a forensic psychology standpoint, do you think the prosecutor is posing the questions and the tone of his voice in a particular way when you have a liar like Jodi Arias on the stand?
I do think, personally, I disagree with many of our legal analysts, see me as a psychology or psychological analyst here or correspondent. I think he is perfect for Jodi Arias' personality. He triggers her, he's direct in his questioning, he demands respect, and what he brings out is her true personality. She nearly cracked a couple of times on the stand. Remember, we want to look for, does the defendant have judgment and good impulse control and also insight? And Juan Martinez has actually demonstrated excellently, it might be his personality style or he might have been coached, that she does not have judgment. She is very disrespectful at times to him. She doesn't have any personal insight. She does not take any responsibility, and she doesn't have impulse control because she charged back at him at various times very inappropriately.
Fascinating. All right, Dr. Daniela Schreier, forensic psychologist, joining us from Chicago. Thank you so much.